Many existentialists found despair in this worldview, and others found tremendous liberation in this worldview as well.
Because it basically is saying there is no purpose. We were talking about some of the more thoughtful responses that have been popping up, and we both really liked this article by Annie Crawford.
Yeah,
that's on Salvo magazine published. Annie Brownell Crawford.
We should make sure we have the link in the description.
Yeah, definitely. And it's called Existential Barbie. And there's just a couple quotes I want to read and then discuss, because I thought they were just really insightful. And were things that I was not hearing about the movie. So she writes this: although everyone is debating the overtly feminist content of the film, the real problem with the beautiful new Barbie movie is not ultimately its feminism, its exaggerated stereotypes, or its political cliches. The problem with Barbie is her committed existentialism. While this candy-colored, well-acted film could have been the sweet and playful movie many women hoped it would be, in the end, Barbie proves to be a cleverly crafted Trojan horse bearing the radical individualism that will devastate relationships between the sexes. And then she adds again later, Barbie lectures Ken on existentialism and the necessity of defining himself relative only to himself. She asks men to do the impossible, figure out who you are without me. While Ken wanted to understand his identity through love, Barbie is committed to total autonomy. I found that so just striking and
very incisive,
and such a heartbreaking thing to hear too. Ken wanted to identify himself through love in a relationship, and obviously no man is no woman is obligated to give herself to any man who loves them. But I just thought that was interesting. And quickly before we talk, maybe give a little definition of existentialism in case there's anyone who really doesn't know precisely what that means. And then let's talk about that, because that is a fascinating part of this rampant individualism that's going on.
And I think just for brevity's sake, because we don't have all the time in the world to go into an in-depth thing on existentialism, but existentialism, you can hear it in the name, is this idea that existence precedes essence. And so you could actually make yourself, your actions and the thoughts you conjure is what defines you. It's not the essence of what you are, like in and of yourself. You can become definitional based on what you do. You become the god of your own world in that sense. And many existentialists found despair in this worldview, and others found tremendous liberation in this worldview as well.
Because it basically is saying there is no purpose to who you are other than what you decide. So it's a subjective purpose, not an objective purpose like you had traditionally with the idea of God and being created for something, for some purpose. Maybe a specific or a general purpose. This is just there is no God. So you were created for no reason. You're here by accident. Your purpose is to define yourself.
And in that, you become autonomous. And I've spoken about this in Saving Truth, for example, the difference between autonomy, which comes from the two Greek words autos, self, and nomos, law. You become a law unto yourself, which is what existentialism is really all about. You are self-defining. But in a post-truth world, we think that's freedom. That's not really freedom. That's total autonomy. And where preferences matter more than truth, the person who has the power, their preferences are the ones that rise to the fore. So in this effort to understand power dynamics, we just upped the game even more with existentialism and its expression through a post-truth world. And so I think in the Barbie movie, Annie Crawford's quite right about this. This is a striking conversation where you almost want to believe Ken. And Ken is this extremely sophomoric, moronic character. But he wants to define himself, yes, by romantic love and attachment. And Barbie, in one sense, is saying, you can't define yourself this way, Ken. In other words, women in the world, if you're defining yourself by your relationships to men, you're doing it wrong. You can have your own definition apart from men. And while that's good and well enough, I think that the value we can garner from this is that We are meant to be in community,
Mhm.
not necessarily in romantic attachments. I don't think that romance and being married makes you a whole person. I don't think that's not biblical.
Yeah.
How do I know that? Because Jesus didn't have any romantic attachments. He wasn't married. As far as we know, Paul wasn't married either. So no one would say Jesus was somehow incomplete and broken. If you believe Jesus is, in the biblical message, the Son of God, he was the most complete person there was. Having said that, though, Jesus acted and ministered in community. He inviting women and men together to support his ministry and propagate his message. But this goes down to the Adam and Eve story in lots of ways to me. Is that she's quite right. This existential issue of total autonomy is a rampant individualism that doesn't even speak, I think, even rationally to the human condition, because we do need each other. And not to define ourselves, but to define what it means to be human, generally speaking, which is why when the Bible says that Adam was alone, and it was not right for him to be alone, not because he was actually alone. He wasn't alone. He had God. And my goodness, you're thinking, if you have God, you have everything. And that's true. But Adam would never be able to fully relate to God because Adam is finite, Adam is flawed, and Adam is temporal, and Adam is physically bound. God is none of those things. And so in order to share a common experience, Eve is created. And so humanity essentially is created. So Adam has a companion to go through life with him on the journey. Why this is fascinating to me, and you pointed this out in the conversation. I referenced it in the book, but you pointed it out through the Barbie movie. There is something interesting in the fact that Barbie goes out of her way to tell Ken, you are not defined by the fact that I exist. And Ken's like, no, wait a minute. Ken dolls only exist because Barbie dolls exist. No one buys Ken dolls for Ken doll's sake. They buy for Barbie as a companion. And she says, no, you need to find your own existence. Now that's, I think, problematic in the one sense of the existential issue. But again, perhaps unintendedly, as you pointed out in our conversation, people have criticized the stereotypical Bible as sexist, and starts from the beginning. Eve is created derivatively from Adam's rib. There is no Eve without Adam first. There is no Ken without Barbie first. But I think if you read the biblical narrative, and as we defend in the book, the fact is that Eve is bone of his bone and flesh of his flesh. Yeah. She is his equal in every sense of the word. And perhaps, and I speculate in the book about this, the fact that she's created from his rib, not his head, not his humerus bone, not his ulna, none of these things, but from his chest is maybe a symbol of the fact that the womanness of humanity is a part of that which guards the heart, guards the emotion, guards the thoughtfulness. There's an incompleteness to humanity without women. And this is a picture of that. Yeah. And the Barbie movie inadvertently actually bolsters that argument because Ken, though secondarily temporally created and seemingly qualitatively created as subordinate, is actually not subordinate in any way, shape, or form. And neither is Eve. So I think that there's at least something we can do to have a conversation around that. Was that intended by the movie makers? I doubt it. But that insight that you pointed out, I think was really, really valuable.